Welcome to the next edition of Just Candid. We are coming after a while, but we are coming up with a wonderful entrepreneur today. We have with us an entrepreneur who has created a movement in the co-working space arena in New Delhi, NCR. We're talking to a mentor, a startup enthusiast, Yatin K Thakur. Hello, Yatin.
Hi, Sumeer.
How are you doing? Welcome to Just Candid.
Thank you so much.
Yatin, now, once we had a conversation where you mentioned, you had a dream too that 1 million people create 10 million jobs? I want the answer from you.
Of course we can, if we pledge to do that. And I think one person cannot do that. It can't be just my dream. It has to be the country's dream to do that. It's good to see that government is taking a lot of initiatives to promote entrepreneurship in the country, supports startups, initiate a movement like
In
Startup
what sense?
India.
What sense?
Well, all said and done, whatever government has done so far, it has built a movement. People are excited to start up. But the bigger question is, why do you start up and when do you start up? And how do you start up?
So how much success have we tasted after the Startup India launch? Startup India launch. Do you think it has reached the optimum level of success, what the goal was?
I would say the momentum has been built. We cannot measure the impact right away. It's too short of a time to measure its impact. But definitely, since the time movement has been launched, we are getting to see so many state governments implementing their own startup policies, figuring out new schemes to promote entrepreneurship in their regions. More and more youngsters are inclined towards starting their own ventures rather than running behind jobs. So definitely there is a momentum. If you ask me an answer for that, so yeah.
So the
it's
momentum
working.
is on.
It's working.
The results are in transit.
Yeah.
And they're ultimately you're going to see the results.
Absolutely.
Now let us talk about what are the pressing issues for a startup. Now I know India is a very diverse country, culture-wise, and we are dealing with multiple states, and every state has a policy, and some states are very proactive, some are not much, or some are aspiring to be.
Yeah.
So what exactly is what is going to happen next? What do you think next 2 years? Which state is going to do well, or which states are going to do well?
I think I would like to point out another key fact right now. What we are getting to see is the 65% youth population. 48% of that population is below 25 years of age. And a lot of these guys are graduating and will be graduating in the next 2 years, 3 years. It is estimated that every year India is producing 10 million new graduates, be it in form of engineers, doctors, professionals,
Management.
anything.
Yeah.
So those 10 million people will have to figure out what they'll be doing. So I really cannot tell you which state will perform well. Definitely there are states who are trying to come up with lucrative options. They are trying to set up their own incubation programs. They are trying to attract more and more young companies to set up their enterprises over there. But eventually it's going to be on these youngsters, and I think it'll depend from which area are they starting up.
Well, that is very well said. What do you think is going to be the main challenge for these startups, especially in tier 2 cities?
I think the biggest challenge is to sustain a startup. People forget to think about sustainability. Everyone thinks that if I am starting up, my first issue to resolve is capital.
Right.
And everyone runs behind money and they try to scout for investors. Whereas the real challenge is to find the right customer. If you get the customer, you'll automatically get money. And if you're earning money, you'll automatically get scale-up capital. To get that first customer, the key thing for you is to find what is your product and who's driving it, which means you got to have your team in place.
I'm very curious to know what is your Yatin Thakur's definition of a startup?
I would say anyone who has the ability to solve a problem, figure out a way to make money out of it. It can be any money, it doesn't need to be a substantial amount, and which involves building a team which gets employed or which becomes a key stakeholder in solving that problem.
Yeah. So the next question which comes to my mind is related to what you are doing.
Yeah.
You know, you set up your first co-working, I would say the concept. I think you were one of the early movers and shakers in Delhi.
Yeah.
You know, you set it up in a house, you know, and I believe it was in South Delhi. And now you have around 5 co-working spaces and around 400 people
Yeah.
working with you
Yeah.
in association and collaboration. Now, are you going to do this for your lifetime?
Well, again, I don't know what's the whether I'll be doing it for my entire life. I feel I have built a viable product which is scalable. It satisfies the needs of various stakeholders. The key component in a co-working space is the space, which is the real estate. Finding the right real estate was the most challenging task. My model sorts out the aspirations of a real estate owner first. Second issue to resolve was the price at which you sell it to the customer. We have been able to provide our spaces at the most affordable price in the center of the cities. You have visited some of my spaces, so you know
Yes, I did.
how it works. So that's the model. If you are able to keep all stakeholders intact, and if you are able to provide them things they require at the right price, the model works. And I think that's what is working for us at Coworking.
Taking a little question from a different angle, where does Yatin Thakur find his peace?
Where do
you
I
find your peace in this business?
Where do I find my peace? I find my peace by helping all the other fellow members, my customers, fellow stakeholders, entrepreneurs who are working out of my space. It's a very satisfying job.
How do you help?
There are about 65 companies working out of our premise right now. Each of them on an average employs about 6 to 7 people. I have direct access to these founders. These founders actually look up to me for advice, for support, for anything they require with regards to their companies. I have seen these startups from the phase where a single founder could barely afford $50 a month to work out of my space. And now these are the same customers who pay me $3,000 a month in rental because their teams have scaled up. That's my peace and satisfaction.
Good. So, how are you seeing at the rising numbers of women coming as entrepreneurs?
Again, very interesting figures at our end. We have a 45% women to men diversity at our spaces.
Well, that's pretty impressive.
I don't think anyone has achieved that. We never looked into it. So we did a background research. How did this happen? We figured out we created safer spaces. Again, we were in the city centers and we were able to attract a specific age group. So we pretty much cater to a 24-year-old to a 35-year-old. So our average age at spaces is 27 years old. At that age, like you are matured. If you are curating the right crowd, you are able to curate the right set of community, and we saw a massive rise in women entrepreneurs over there because they were able to feel connected with the space. They saw these spaces were secured. They saw these spaces were accessible. They saw it provided a flexible working environment, and it's good to see that the gender equality is finally kicking in. And I am hoping that one day it's 51% women and 49%.
No, kudos to you. Yeah, I'm very much, my good wishes are with you, and we all wish good for you on that. Now, coming back on some of the successful stories your incubator and your co-working spaces have. And your first co-working space in South Delhi, and you mentioned once that Urban Clap was born out of it.
Yeah.
Can you share more about it?
Sure. So that's the job I like of running these spaces. So I remember the 3 founders of Urban Clap were just starting up. They were on a low budget. They came to us. They briefly mentioned to one of my community managers their idea. They said we need space, but we won't be able to afford your co-working space because we are 3 people, but we have budget only for 2 people. What do we do? Now that was a tough situation for us because ultimately you are in a business and you got to take a call. So we said, well, what do? We got to find you an alternate space. They said, hey, how about us using your dining table as our work table, if you don't mind. It was like, it's a house.
What year was that?
This was, I think, in 2013 or early 2014.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere around that time.
And that's how it started.
That's how it started. So Urban Clap guys, I remember the 3 co-founders used to be at our space. They used to keep the whiteboard on one of the chairs, and there were like.
You should have taken some pictures.
I wish I had
I
taken
think
some
you
videos.
Yeah, videos.
Yeah, but they were generous enough to share their numbers
Are
with
you
me.
in touch?
Of course. So, in fact, just day before, I wrote an email to Varun Khaitan about what's happening and how things are going. And I was, you'll be surprised to know, the company, which didn't even know their brand name, and that was also decided on our dining table, is able to connect with 60,000 professionals every month, and they have been able to increase their income levels by 2.5 times at least.
No, I think you you contributed to their success. At least there was a base start.
I think they were smart founders.
They're smart, and it's times of collaboration,
Absolutely.
integration, and I would say goodness too, because
Yeah.
ethics play a key role. What do you have to say on ethics?
I think it's all about fostering the right set of people, imbibing right set of value
Ethics in
system.
business, I mean. Ethics in business.
It's very much needed. You got to be honest. You got to have a good integrity to be successful, and that's what you see when that's what you learn when you are working with strangers, but at a curated space.
And do you think it's a lot of hard work?
For the startup or for the space?
I would say startup.
For the startup, of course. Nothing comes cheap. Without hard work, nothing is possible. There is hard work, but I would also say there's smart work.
So yeah, I know without smart work you can't manage the whole things.
Yeah.
But how much do you agree on the figures that 20,000 startups are currently in India, right? And 80,000 are going to be there by 2020.
There are figures floating in from all directions. Whenever I visit your area, which is Punjab, whenever I visit one of the universities, I think these numbers will be much higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to see 6,000, 7,000 students graduating out of one college every year, and you have like 20, 30 such colleges, and all of them are without a job, just imagine what's going to be the number for startups and entrepreneurship. So I think it's difficult to say
We
that.
struggle because our job placement numbers are very high. Most of our kids go in placements, but now there is a rising culture
Yeah.
in our students looking at entrepreneurship as an alternative career and a very secure career they feel.
I'll share another interesting fact. There was a research done by someone recently. They said 86% of working professionals in India want to have their own setup, and they are wanting to quit and pursue their own ideas.
I would somewhere agree. Why? Because that is the existing scenario.
So
Because the people we hit on and meet, and we interact, it is something. Everybody, I went to a bank a few days back for some of my work, and the guy said, "What do you do?" I said, "I run an incubator and I'm working for a university." And they said, I think he was so, so helpful. Generally bankers are very busy, but he was so helpful. Went a little out of the way, for helping me out with some consultancy on the insurance and whatever my queries were. Now the point is, then later on, after 45 minutes of me having a conversation with him and getting my job done, he said, "Sir, when can I come and see you? I have a plan. So I have a startup to make, and but just keep it between you and me." I said, "That's fine. First you come." That's right. That's right. There
That's
is
happening.
a rising. There is a
Absolutely.
rising aspiration, and sort of a plan to.
trust me,
Everybody
there
does.
hasn't been a single instance where, whether I've been on a train, whether I've been on a flight, whether I've been in an airport lounge or I've been at a public space and people haven't come and pitched me an idea after knowing what I do. So I totally get you on that.
Yeah.
That's the
No,
future.
I think
of
we are
India.
good on that. We are good on that. What about your thoughts on the disruptive innovations which are happening? Let's go on the innovation side now.
Yeah.
Hardware innovations in I would say, defense, in aerospace, in IT, IoT, AI, VR.
I think IoT in general is very interesting. I've been closely monitoring that. IoT combined with AI, machine learning, and visual reality. Again, what is happening is everything is becoming simpler. To give you an example, if you go to any airport in the United States now,
Right.
earlier we used to see 10 or 20 check-in counters.
That's right.
Now you see 40 automated self-check-in machines.
Right.
There is one person who's manning those 20 machines, but you just go in, scan your passport, scan your
And you
basic
save time when
details,
you're out of the airport.
and you're done with your check-in
Right.
in a matter of seconds. That's what technology is doing. That's disruption. Who did it help? It helped us because you don't have to queue up. Airports don't get jam-packed. As a result of that, you are able to reach to your location at a much faster pace.
And only people it didn't help are the ones who lost their jobs.
But I'm pretty sure they are engaged in something else, right?
Absolutely. You have to move on.
It is
Yeah.
just upgrading your skill set. So you got to do better things. Take an example of an Uber. Who thought a driver's job can be so lucrative? Drivers were depleting around the world. And now what has Uber done? It has ultimately brought back all the drivers. And at the same time, it has brought down the cost of mobility and transport. That's the biggest problem to solve.
To be very honest, were you ever excited seeing the Uber revolution to just take a job of a driver?
You know, when I'm in the situations when I know I might not have salaries to pay next month, I think, how about driving a car? At least it can give me $1,000
I
a
also
month.
thought one. I did. Yeah. Okay, now, just about to sum up this wonderful conversation, though I don't want to get out of the conversation, and we love chatting, that's what, interesting conversations do, and interesting people do. Yatin, what are the three, keeping the Indian context in mind, and the Indian ecosystem and the developing economy, Indian political environment and all this stuff, what are the three sectors where startups can, go into and build up a very prosperous career?
If you ask me about specific sectors, agriculture, it's untapped.
You mean agriculture, technology, and all?
Absolutely. So, 49% of the country is still engaged in agriculture. The challenge is now this young generation, which is under 65, they are not becoming agricultural professionals. They'll become smart workers. So they would need those
Under 65 years or under 65%?
65%
of the total
of
population
the
are
population
young, below
is young,
35.
Below 35.
That's right, yeah.
48% of that population is below 25.
Right.
This population owns lands because it's ancestral. Their families are involved in agriculture. These guys will be driving the next generation of agricultural growth, but using technology.
So how to keep them sticking to the roots and doing this work? Because as you see, numbers are somewhere alarming where these guys are just leaving the country and going out and settling down.
They just need to know how problems can be solved. You'll be surprised to know India is one of the largest countries which has 170 million animals and highest population of cattle. That's a big number. Cattle have a direct contribution to agriculture in various manners. And that's what these youngsters need to understand, how they utilize this already built ecosystem which India offers them and take it to the next level. The whole world is concerned about food problems, including China. But India is the only country which has the ability to feed rest of the world. If the
think
agriculture
about it goes
properly.
right.
Absolutely.
I think I see, a diehard agriculturist in you.
Absolutely. So you'll be surprised to know I've been working with a lot of farmers. I have invested in agro companies. I have invested in farmer clubs in different parts of the country just to see what's happening.
Money and time both?
Both. Absolutely. Because this is the biggest problem, like food is something you won't live without. And you need to know where is that food coming
And the
from.
right food. So that's one, agriculture.
Second sector
What's the
to
second?
focus is healthcare.
Healthcare.
Right. We are again getting to see a lot of healthcare companies all of a sudden.
Disruptive revolution is coming up in the healthcare technology.
People are getting more aware about health issues and they want to stay healthy. They want to stay
Anybody
fit.
would.
Absolutely. So, still we have a big problem of rural healthcare. People in smaller towns, even in tier 2 cities, actually come to bigger cities for
Their health
basic,
checkups and
basic health
treatment and
checkups.
all. What is the third one?
And the third one, I would say, is education.
So
Education is
agriculture, health,
healthcare.
education are the three areas.
These are the three things, according to me.
Three
and
sectors.
then AI, machine learning, IoT will be the technologies used to solve some of these
boost and
issues.
solve issues in these particular sectors.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got a model, a role model, and a model to look up to. We can't have only one role model, we have many role models.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own favorites. So before I take your answer, I am reminded of, the pretty beautiful lady Brooke Shields, who long time childhood friend of the famous entertainer who walked this earth, the global entertainer. I hope you guess it, Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Right? And she mentioned once that, she happened to ask him, what is your favorite song? And she was expecting some song from his, songs, his own songs written and composed. And he answered that my favorite song is a song written by the late Charlie Chaplin for the movie Modern Times. And the song's name is Smile, right? And so how much do you also feel, that you also have somebody outside the domain who's your favorite and who has inspired you to be such a successful and a sorted entrepreneur at such a young age?
I would say I've been fortunate enough to get global exposure through the work which I do. I've been able to travel around the world. I've done, I think, about 20 countries in the last 3 years. So I've met a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people. There have been inspirational stories pretty much from every region I
So
travel.
you understand travel is education?
Absolutely. It takes you to the next level. And after traveling the world, you get to learn so much and you get to pick up the right things from right places. And once you bring back to your country and once you execute it, you are able to bring a change. And that's exactly what I've been doing. But to answer your specific question of one favorite person, I have been really looking up to this gentleman called Feld, who happens to be the partner of Foundry Group, and also he's one of the founders of Techstars, one of the leading accelerators in the world. I was fortunate enough to meet Brad for the first time about 3.5 years back in Las Vegas for a
So he's
conference.
been quite inspiring and
Absolutely.
had an influence in your...
Yeah, his philosophy says, don't think about the present, don't think about the returns today. Think about the relationships and think about the problems which you're solving, their impact 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And that's how I look at it. I've got the age right now. I try to foster youngsters so that 10 years, 15 years, 20 years down the line, when we relate to them, we will realize what have we done.
Great. It has been absolutely original, I would say. I normally use the word candid because we are on Just Candid. It has been absolutely original and a pleasure talking to you. And I'm very sure there are takeaways for youngsters and whosoever is watching this interview later on while we produce it will have, some sort of insights and ideas to take their startups forward.
Absolutely. And it's always good to interact with you, Sumeer, because you are able to always pull out the original out of me. You have been asking these candid questions and I'm trying to just answer them.
It is an honor.
Thank you so much
It is
for
an
having me here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you.